You sound like my therapist.
You have a therapist?
I've had a therapist for 21 years.
Isn't that proof it's not working?
No, I'm doing great.
It's amazing.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Like,
eat your words.
Come
but
on.
How many people?
Do the trifecta. Come late, mispronounce my name, and give my address.
I was on
Hit
time.
the hat trick, baby.
I was on time. 5:35. I was 5 minutes late.
I'm just kidding.
Oh my God! I'm gonna kick your ass.
No,
I could kick your ass.
yeah,
Just admit it.
I'm sure you
I'm
could.
beefier.
When
but climate anxiety and political division and disunity and
kids don't care about that. They pretend they do. They don't give a shit about the climate. They want to be on Kylie Jenner's private plane.
Hold on a second.
They want to own that plane. They do not give a shit about.
Bill, when you have a podcast, you need to ask your guests some questions and let them talk every once in a while.
So a few weeks ago, we went over Bill Burr's appearance on the Bill Maher Podcast Club Random, and it turned out to be a fun episode. I recommend you go watch it because not only did Bill Burr completely destroy Bill Maher and made fun of him on his own show, but it did also show us that at the very least, Bill Maher is an actual comic and he can take a joke. And so because of that, it did make me want to look more into Club Random, and I did. I started watching a lot of episodes, and I noticed something that I thought was very, very interesting, which is that in a way, it does seem like Bill Maher's Podcast Club Random is what the Flagrant Podcast will end up being in the future, if that makes any sense. Because we did mention this on that Bill Burr video, and now thinking about it, there are a lot of similarities between both Bill Maher and Andrew Schulz. Not only do they behave in a very similar way by interrupting a lot, always wanting to be the smartest one in the room, but also the way they approach their show and the way they treat their guests by not caring about making them uncomfortable is pretty much the exact same way. And Bill Maher's episode with Rainn Wilson, also known as Dwight, was a perfect example of that because it did start off pretty friendly. They were taking shots at each other, but it was mostly fine. But then towards the end, it does get a little bit awkward and a little bit heated. So let's get started.
How old are you?
57.
What about liquor?
I'm sober.
Oh, then you're completely.
I had a bad dope trip in my 20s. I don't know if it was laced with something, but I was going through a really bad time, and I decided to wake and bake on Christmas morning while living in an abandoned beer brewery in Brooklyn. And wow. I had a super bad trip. I started shaking. I was sweating. My muscles were like contracting in my arms. My heart was racing.
What year is this?
90.
Okay.
91.
Time out.
And then I'm not done yet.
But it happened in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it was a fluke.
But I'm not done with my story.
Oh, sorry.
Because then I saw the face of God.
Oh.
And then I swore to the face of God that I would never smoke dope again.
What did he look like? What's this face look like?
It looked like, in all seriousness, it looked like a Mark Rothko painting. It looked like an abstract sunset, over the Tahitian Ocean.
That's funny because I always thought God would look like James Woods. So you saw God.
I saw the face of God.
And you made this deal with him?
I just swore to the face of God. It was
that you wouldn't do this again.
It was like a teen caper movie. It's like, please God, get me through this, and I won't ever smoke pot again, or I won't ever do drugs again. I was doing a lot of drugs at the time.
It's not that you would fear that you would have an episode like that again, right? What you fear, you're saying, is that you would anger God because you would be a welcher on the deal. No, I feel like that's what I'm getting from this.
I know.
Is that
that's
right?
I know that's where you're going. No,
is it?
That's not right. It wasn't. Oh. Drugs and alcohol were not good for me.
Now, that did happen within the first 3 minutes of the episode, which is funny because, once again, they did start off by taking shots at each other, but it was mostly friendly, and it wasn't until Bill Maher took it to the next level by essentially making fun of Rainn's story and completely dismissing his experience with a bad trip. Now, to be fair, sure, a bad trip is a horrible experience, whatever, but also that story does sound a lot like the scene from Friday where Smokey gets something that is laced and then it's no longer the same for the rest of his life. Now, Rainn did say that he also tried a lot of other stuff, so maybe that's just his long story, his long explanation about why he is sober, which is a little bit odd. I mean, I think it might be easier to just say that he doesn't like it and move on, because that story is very roastable. And listen, I do like that Bill Maher is pro 420 and all that stuff, but I think roasting someone's story about having a bad trip is wild because for once, we don't know how bad it was, if it was life-changing or whatever, but also, I don't believe Bill Maher and Rainn Wilson have ever done anything outside of that podcast together like Bill Burr and Bill Maher did. So because of that, I think it's wild. I think it's crazy that Bill Maher is actually being that aggressive towards Rainn Wilson for no reason. But it's not surprising because we did mention this last time, and it's very clear that Bill Maher truly doesn't care about who the guest is and simply just wants someone to sit across from him so that he can try and sound smart and just basically tell everyone what he thinks.
We don't have to share politics to be friends with people.
I agree 100%.
Oh, good.
1,000%.
Because I cannot stand the attitude of, if you don't agree with me, I unfriend you.
Remember the whole thing about like someone shook hands with George Bush
Yes.
Jr. at like the U.S.
Ellen.
Open or something
Ellen.
like that? And
Ellen.
like you shook hands with
Ellen.
a war criminal?
It was Ellen.
Yeah.
You don't want to acknowledge that.
It was Ellen.
Why is that something we want to avoid? It was Ellen. It wasn't her fault.
It doesn't even
right?
matter who it was. The point is like,
Well,
by the way, everyone under 45 is Googling James Woods right now because he's not, he's like,
Yeah.
he's relevant to us. Let's face it.
He's definitely not relevant to us, but we are fans of his work.
And funny enough, I did have to look up James Woods to refresh my memory because he's absolutely no longer relevant at all. And what's interesting about that comment is that I thought Rainn Wilson was about to go down the same route as Bill Burr, since back when Bill Burr was on the show, he roasted Bill Maher by taking shots at him for being much older and because he kept bringing up older references. And it worked flawlessly. However, when it comes to Rainn, because he is closer to being 60 years old, he couldn't really take the same approach. However, I think if he was more prepared or if he knew what to expect, he could have done the same thing or he could have done something similar as Dr. Phil and take shots at Bill Maher for his choice of not wanting to have a wife.
Better than whatever thing is sublimating it.
Well, I still don't know why you haven't got married, but I am fully understanding why nobody has ever married you. I totally get that 100%.
Do you really
They'd
think?
fucking kill themselves.
Do you really think a million bitches haven't tried?
Yeah, oh, I'm certain some of them have entertained it, and then
No.
about a week into it thought, oh my God.
Trust me, the reason I'm not married is not because I couldn't be married. Girls always want to get married. You don't have to be doing anything that great. They just like marriage.
And by the way, at this point, I'm not sure if that was the real Dr. Phil or if that was Adam Ray. But anyways, back to the whole Ellen comments. I thought it was funny because it was the perfect example of Bill Maher making it clear that he wasn't letting anything go, even going as far as to interrupting the guest in a very aggressive way just so that he can get his point across. And look, to be fair, when it comes to Bill Burr and Bill Maher, they did work together in the past, so obviously they already have this dynamic going on of them going at each other. But with Rainn Wilson, I don't believe he was expecting to go on Bill Maher's podcast and have to defend himself and debate everything that he believes.
You know who else is rather chummy with George Bush? I don't mean chummy like hey George, Michelle Obama.
Yeah, both the Obamas.
And you know who Ruth Bader Ginsburg was very close
Scalia.
with? Scalia. And
You're
Sonia
not going to stump me, Mayor.
What?
You're not going to stump me.
Did you call me Mayor? Did you say I'm Bill
We
Maher?
edit it to make
Oh.
it sound like I said Mar.
Wow, first you're late and now you mispronounce my name.
Wow.
I still like you, but
You were great on Politically Incorrect.
thanks. And you were great on your show. That ended a while ago, though. Anyway, I have a show now. So,
How do I get
by
a
the
show?
way, I know you hear this like a zillion times a day, but I was like the biggest fan of The Office.
Nice.
Oh my God. I remember we have taped on Friday since the beginning with Real Time. Thursday, your show was on. And so Thursday was my really hard cram night. I would like work my tail off, tape the show. This is the old DVR days. And it was like it was the carrot at the end of my long work night.
Now, keep in mind that this is only 9 minutes into the 1 hour episode, and it's just them taking shots at each other back and forth, which it made me wonder if the way that the episode came about wasn't them directly talking to each other, but instead maybe Rainn Wilson's team reaching out to Bill Maher's team to work something out, and then Bill Maher just getting the message that Dwight from The Office wanted to be on the show. So he took it, and him being a comedian potentially saw an opportunity to troll him a little bit and then ask him about The Office, which is not what Rainn Wilson was there to talk about. His whole thing was promoting his new book and his new show on Peacock, I believe. And also, I keep noticing how similar Andrew Schulz is to Bill Maher. And if you look at the sets, I didn't notice this the first time, but I wonder if Andrew Schulz took inspiration from Bill Maher's sets for his new studio, which is good. I mean, I take inspiration from a lot of people. But then the question is if Andrew Schulz is also taking inspiration from Bill Maher on how to run the show. Because again, one of the similarities was how they treat their guests and how they both have a reputation for not being the nicest to the guests. For example, when it comes to Andrew Schulz, we have talked about this in the past, how yes, putting the guests through uncomfortable situations and having little limits on what they talk about and bring up can create some entertaining episodes. However, the dilemma is that in the long run, it can potentially affect the show because although it's great content, it does create somewhat of a toxic platform for the guest, and they do have to think twice before going back on the show. And by the way, if you made it this far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps out so much, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Like, I
wonder what you're talking about right now.
I went on Andrew Schultz podcast, and do you know about this?
No.
And he had to be like really hard on me or something. There's something where everyone's like, maybe it's like good numbers. I'm trying to figure out what it is.
You know, I think part of the problem is, and it's something I address in my book. We don't have to talk about.
No. We're here. I'm so
We're
sorry.
promoting things.
I wasn't gonna forget it, although
It's got lots of God stuff in it. You're gonna hate this book, Bill. I'm so glad you did.
Soul Boom. I eat it for breakfast. Why we need a spiritual revolution? Well, I am gonna crack this. I'm actually be very interested to read this. Wow, you really spent some time on this.
I did. I spent 3 years
you
writing
filled
that.
up all these blank pages.
Yeah. I wrote all of those words myself.
Okay, Soul Boom. Why do we need a spiritual revolution? So what kind of a book is this? This is not a novel.
No, it's a book on spirituality.
What's the most painful thing that ever happened to you?
Rhett, you sound like my therapist.
You have a therapist?
I've had a therapist for 21 years.
Isn't that proof it's not working?
No, I'm doing great.
It's amazing.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Like,
eat your words. I am happy, content.
Really?
In a rich, fulfilling marriage.
Oh, great.
I'm doing incredible creative projects. I've got my life on track and a rich, deep perspective that for 50 minutes a week for 20 years at great expense. Sorry, Hollywood. He has helped me on this path.
Okay.
So it's absolutely worth the money.
Okay. So
I have a New York Times best-selling book. I have a successful show on Peacock.
Oh, yeah.
And
we're going to plug that
do you need
too.
a cough drop?
No.
Do you need a Heimlich? Do you need a job?
No. Well, keep talking. No, I like where this is going.
Now, that happened about 30 minutes into the episode or halfway through. And before that, for about 20 minutes, Bill Maher was telling Rainn Wilson how much of a fan he was of The Office, which, to be fair, I'm a huge fan too. I think The Office is a top 10 or potentially a top 5 best comedy shows of all time. But something that is important to point out, in my opinion, is that when it comes to certain actors that become huge because of their role in a massively successful TV sitcom like The Office, they have a tough time trying to rebrand whenever that show is done, which is what I think happened with Rainn Wilson, because it did seem like Bill Maher was mainly interested in the whites and talking about The Office and not necessarily on Soul Boom and the things that Rainn Wilson was there to promote and talk about. Now, the whole talk about therapy was pretty funny, and it did remind me of that one time that Bill Burr told Christina P. that he was no longer going to therapy and then had that legendary moment.
Yeah, you're full of anger.
Because
No.
you flog yourself for being vulnerable.
Would you stop it like you
Yeah.
have some sort of
I
psychology
do.
degree?
10 years in therapy. It's
So what?
helped.
I've
It's
watched
helped with
football
anger.
for 40 years. I shouldn't be somebody's coach.
I agree.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Bill Maher making fun of therapy, I don't think it's that bad simply because in that scenario, technically they're both comedians. They're doing Bill Maher's podcast, which is not his more professional and formal TV show. And so because of that, I think it's more, it's fair game and it's all jokes. And also Bill Maher does have some pretty good points about therapy and how much it's needed or if it's needed to have a successful and a happy life at their level, because at the end of the day, regardless of how much money you make, anyone can go through some low times, some low mental times in their life. However, if bills are not a problem and money is not an issue in your life, it definitely does help out a ton. And I've never been to therapy, but I'm pretty sure it's just a tool like anything else. So for Bill Maher to say that if you're still going after 20 years, it's proof that it's not working, that would be like saying that if you're still going to the gym after 20 years, it's proof that it's also not working. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
So I hear from what I read that therapists are not just for completely crazy people anymore. Is there any truth to that? Because when I hear therapists, I think, oh, you're nuts. So you have to go to this doctor to fix
Well,
it.
I am nuts, and I've had a
But we
lot
all
of
are.
struggles, and I've had a lot of, I've had a lot of really dark times. You asked me what the darkest time
Yeah,
is.
what's
I'm
the-
not, I'm not gonna,
what's
I'm
the
not gonna
bad-
get really specific.
What's the bad shit, man?
Well, I'm not gonna go completely there, but I will say that
Did someone
I
touch-
had many sleepless nights with addiction issues and ideation and anxiety attacks that would render me shaking on the floor and
I'm guessing this
depressive
is all
episodes.
before The Office.
This was all before The Office. Although
Right.
I had some bad times during The Office too.
I bet you not as bad.
Not as bad.
Right, because like I feel like I went through the same thing, which was, when I was a failing loser, life sucked and I felt sucky about it.
No.
And then when I was doing better and
That's not
success,
true.
no,
That's absolutely
Success
not true.
came your
I
way.
was not a failing loser. I
I
was a
was.
struggling actor. And
well,
I
that's
was-
a failing
it was-
loser. And then you became
Wait a second.
a
Struggling
giant,
actor is not failing loser. I was getting acting work. I was living in New York. I was a
Come
theater
on,
actor.
show business. Okay, show business is a hit or miss league, babe. Hit or miss. You know what? If you make or miss, I'm sorry, that's the term the NBA uses. It's a make or miss league, show business. If you are, you want to call it working or starting or. If you're not,
What
if you
about
have
this?
it,
What
if you're
about-
not doing well, if you're not
Hold on a
riding
second.
high, you're riding low. There's no middle in show
What about
business.
being an artist? What about, because that's that's how I viewed myself.
Oh, well.
I was a theater artist. I went to theater school and I was a theater artist and I was making plays about the human condition.
Yeah, but you really wanted to be on a hit show.
I didn't. I swear I didn't.
Now, what's really funny about that is how you can see in real time Bill Maher realizing that he's about to go way too far, because it does sound like he was about to ask him if someone touched him and then aborted the plan. And once again, before any of those things happened, it was mostly friendly and light punches, but then it starts getting a little bit more serious, and you can tell that this is when Rain starts to get frustrated, which makes me wonder if that was Bill Maher's plan the whole time, to have to try and make Rain mad and make him snap on the show while he was promoting his book Soul Boom. But then I remember it was Bill Maher and how he does that with every single person. So it's not that he's a genius, it's just that he's actually that selfish, and he's really not faking it when he says that he does whatever he wants on his show and how his podcast is not like any other podcast out there, because he really doesn't care about the guest. I mean, recently he was smoking in front of Candace Owens when she was pregnant, if I remember correctly, and also he turned down Steve-O when he requested, or he asked if Bill Maher could avoid smoking if he went on the show, and Bill Maher said no. So in a way, Bill Maher is really that old guy that truly doesn't care about anything.
When I was in the office, I spent several years really mostly unhappy because it wasn't enough.
Enough
and this
what?
is what I'm looking at now, and I'm realizing now, like, I'm on a hit show, Emmy nominated every year, making lots of money working with like Steve Carell and Jenna Fisher and John Krasinski and these amazing writers and incredible directors like Paul Feig. I'm on one of the great TV shows. People love it.
Right. All-time classic.
And I wasn't enjoying it. I was thinking about, why am I not a movie star? Why am I not the next Jack Black or the next Will Ferrell. And how come I can't have a movie career?
Yeah,
And why
that's-
don't I have this development deal?
That's so honest.
And why don't
That's so honest. And that's so what everybody to a degree in show business is.
Yeah.
Everybody who's not at the absolute tippity-toppity top of that tall ladder called stardom is like, yes. And you're like, wow, you're a terrific actor and you're doing very well. You're not Brad Pitt? Okay, they was only going to make one of him. But
Now, in this case, I do agree with Bill Maher a little bit more when it comes to having a more simplistic approach to dealing with problems in life. However, a big difference between both of them is that Bill Maher doesn't have a family, doesn't plan to have a family. So because of that, he can have a more selfish approach to life and a more selfish mentality. Now, to be fair, I haven't seen Rain's new show or read his book, and I don't plan to, so I could be wrong. However, based on what he said on that episode with Bill Maher, it does sound like a big thing that he was struggling with while working on The Office was that even though he was on a massively successful TV show and was making tons of money, he still wasn't happy because he wasn't a movie star, which I don't know if a lot of people can relate to that. I understand that it's normal to have those thoughts of, comparing yourself to other people and wishing that you had what they had and wanting more. But also it could be seen as him being completely out of touch, because that would be like getting mad that you won the lottery simply because you didn't hit the jackpot. And it could be the reason why Bill Maher wasn't taking him that serious when they were having that conversation about struggling and needing a therapist.
of it.
Let's
But in the
say-
modern world, when we've got our Instacart and our Grubhubs and our stocked bars, we're fine. And this never enough kind of impulse is ripping us apart. It's one of the things ripping us apart.
well,
So
it's-
this is part of what
yeah.
Soul Boom is about,
But-
is some spiritual tools to help us find greater wholeness and well-being.
Yeah, I get that side of it. There's also the other side of it, which is Buddhism, first of all, was started at a time when life was very painful. So the philosophy of, if I just shut out how I feel about things, then I won't experience pain if I don't attach to anything. That made sense when life was shitty and you were wiping your ass with bark. But it's kind of antiquated now because, we did get to this place where we can have really cushy lives. Even middle-class people, only the very poor really live in a kind of state, even what they used to call extreme, I guess they still call it extreme poverty, but
Thoreau says the mass of men live lives of quiet desperation, and I think that's true, because I think that whether it's a middle class life and you're working a job and you're making 60, 70 grand a year and you've got Domino's pizza on the table,
Right.
like how many people living that life are truly like satisfied and content? Maybe some are. I'm sure some are. And how many people in these Hollywood hills that surround you? I won't give your address. Oh, I want to give it right now. I want to, so that they beep it out. I want to do it so bad, but I'm not going to.
come
but
on.
how many people?
Do the trifecta. Come late, mispronounce my name, and give my address.
I was on
Hit
time.
the hat trick, baby.
I was on time, 5:35. I was 5 minutes late.
I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, I'm gonna kick your ass.
No.
I could kick your ass.
Yeah,
Just
I'm sure
admit
you.
it.
I'm sure you
I'm
could.
beefier.
You are.
You're willowy.
Now, obviously, Rain was just playing around, but you could tell that he was starting to get frustrated, which makes sense. If you're Rainn Wilson and you're going on Bill Maher's podcast expecting to promote your book and your new show, and then he starts debating and arguing with you, basically telling you that whatever you believe in and what the book is about doesn't really make any sense. I mean, I think that would make anyone defensive. But also on top of that, the whole time Bill Maher was interrupting a lot and was very aggressive about it, similar to Andrew Schultz. Now, we do have to call out Rainn Wilson for something he said, because it did sound like he was talking about how for some people, $70,000 a year might be enough and that they would be happy and comfortable making that a year, which if that's the case, again, that's being out of touch, because $70,000 a year, it's a lot of money unless you're in LA or New York or one of those like crazy expensive places to live in. But I believe for the majority of the world, $70,000 a year is a lot of money, and they would be more than happy making that every year. And now this is when things get a little bit more heated, which is very interesting because, again, even though Bill Maher and Rainn Wilson are pretty much on the same page politically, they do disagree on almost everything.
I see why you love the ending of Succession so much. You're like, life is and then you die kind of.
Life is not.
No,
I'm not saying life. I'm saying life is good.
Yeah.
And even people who, I'm telling you, 100 years ago, people did not have lives as easy and good as we have them. We forget
and
that.
And yet people are more unhappy than they've ever been.
How the do you know?
Because you can look at suicide rates for Gen Z people. They've tripled in the last 20 years.
That's true.
Yeah,
the mental health. Yes.
The mental health crisis is out of control right now.
That's true, but now we're talking about a different subject. We're talking about the advent of social media and smartphones, which is only about 12, 15 years old.
I don't know that 100% of this mental health.
Oh, that is all where that's.
I think there's a big percentage, but could it be 30, 40%? But climate anxiety and political division and disunity and
kids don't care about that. They pretend they do. They don't give a shit about the climate. They want to be on Kylie Jenner's private plane.
Hold on a second.
They want to own that plane. They do not give a shit
Bill,
about.
when you have a podcast, you need to ask your guests some questions and let them talk every once in a fucking while.
You've talked quite a bit, and this is not a kind of a podcast where I ask anybody questions. I don't. Is that how you conduct your personal?
Who said that life was where you go on a podcast and they ask you questions?
Yeah, that's why
life is going on a podcast and you got to fight to get a word in edgewise.
You don't have to fight. You haven't fought all night. You've had plenty of time to talk, and you have plenty of time now to talk. But this podcast is not like those other podcasts, which is why it's doing better.
It is
because it's actually interesting, and it's actually what I would really be doing with you.
And what's very interesting is that was very similar to what Andrew Schulz was doing to Whitney Cummings on the Flagrant Podcast, to the point that Whitney Cummings actually asked him if she could talk, to which he responded with a no, and it was wild back when it happened.
Do you think people really have an issue with nepotism, or they have an issue with themselves just not getting a role?
Hollywood's never been like fair. Why should it be?
That's
I mean,
thing.
it's like neither sports.
Now
like,
this is a fucking wild take that the guys don't really appreciate.
I think it's sorry. Can I say something about
No,
Nepo babies?
I was in the middle of a sentence.
I know, but if we're moving on.
But we're not moving on.
But
it's about this.
okay.
It's about this. The Nepo babies' parents.
So naturally, when I saw that Whitney Cummings was on Bill Maher's podcast, I thought it would be an insane episode. However, they got along very well. Whitney Cummings was making him laugh the whole time, and Bill Maher was extremely nice to her, which was surprising because there were a lot of times where he could have easily made fun of her, but he didn't. They actually got along very, very well. And once again, very similar to Andrew Schulz, he does have the ability of being nice to people and chooses who he wants to be nice to and who he wants to troll and destroy or try to destroy on his own show. Which is what he did with Rainn Wilson. And now looking back, it does make the Bill Burr episode even better because we mentioned it on that episode, but Bill Burr did figure out the perfect way of handling someone like Bill Maher, because there is no doubt that Bill Maher is a smart person and knows a lot of stuff. But Bill Burr was able to roast him, and he did it without having to actually get aggressive or mad. Again, that episode was good, and they were both having a good time. But this one with Rainn Wilson, although it was a good episode and it's entertaining, it's very clear that towards the end, Bill Maher was bored and done with the episode. He wanted to end it, and then he gets called out for having a short episode and put on the spot for forgetting to talk about the book and his new show, which is what Rainn Wilson was there to promote and to talk about. So towards the end, they do have a small conversation about the book and the show, but it was very forced and clear that Bill Maher was already done and ready to go.
I appreciate you rolling with all the ornery-isms that I have as a host.
Are you winding this up?
I have to, because there's another guest here.
You double booked me?
We always knew this. We tape these, for like all TV shows do like this, because
Bill, listen, we may not see eye to eye at all on anything. No, we do. I think politically we do.
I think we see eye to eye a lot.
Yeah.
This is like, to me, there's been no difference if there had been no cameras rolling. I would have said the exact same thing, and I think you would have too.
I was a little more self-conscious because there's cameras rolling, and I'm like, I'm on Bill Maher's show, and when is he gonna jump me ideologically? But I agree 100%, and I love that you didn't even ask, and you don't need to ask about my new show on Peacock streaming service.
I told you,
called
you
Rainn
had
Wilson and the Geography of Bliss.
I have plugs too. See, I told you.
Streaming now on Peacock, where I travel the world looking for happiness, because I, unlike Bill, believe that happiness, well-being, satisfaction, and wholeness is possible and achievable, and is something we can strive for. Peacock, you're not subscribing. Turn that around, America. Subscribe to the old Peacock. Watch Office reruns, which old Bill here loves. And check out the new Rainn Wilson streaming show. Bill, what do you got? You're playing, Chuckles Comedy Casino and Bismarck, North Carolina on April 22nd. with Fluffy is opening.
And once again, at the end of the day, it was a fun episode. It was entertaining, and it was more on the friendly side, even though things got a little bit heated towards the end. But it was more like the Bill Burr episode, again, friendly. Now, what I did like about Club Random was that he does have a lot of people on that he doesn't agree with, or people that have completely opposite beliefs, which is pretty cool. And by the way, let me know if we should continue to cover Bill Maher, because again, I watched a lot of episodes and there's a lot of interesting stuff there. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. Go subscribe to Comedy Enforcement Live, our second channel. We are planning on doing something with that very, very soon. So I'll post the link in the description. But yeah, go subscribe. Dislike if you didn't like the video. But that is all we have for today. See ya.